Here is the recipe that I cook in this video. Feel free to screenshot, write it down, or copy from the description. Let's face it, tacos are amazing and almost impossible to mess up. In this video, I will run you through how to streamline your weeknight taco making process, run through some optional tips for improving the tacos, and the formula I use to cook almost any taco meat. I will start with tip number 1. Make your own taco seasoning mix. Look, I know how convenient the pre-made spices are, so that is why I advise that if you make your taco seasoning, you make enough for at least a few more taco nights after this. Aside from the MSG, I'm pretty sure most of you have these spices in your cabinet already. For my seasoning mix, I add salt, black pepper, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, red pepper flake, MSG, oregano, ground cumin, and chili powder. For quantities, I'm adding roughly even amounts of everything, except for the red pepper and MSG, where I'm adding roughly a third of the others, and the cumin and chili powder where I'm adding a bit more, about 1.5 more than the others. Once added, just mix the spices thoroughly. At this point, you can taste it and add seasonings as needed. Store that in an airtight container, and that will keep as long as your other spices. Now, we can move on to prepping our toppings. Now, I love tomatoes, but 3/4 of the year you only have the large greenhouse tomatoes in the supermarket. These may look red and ripe, but that is an illusion. These tomatoes are picked when they are green and firm so that they can be shipped easily without bruising. Then, they douse it with ethylene in order to turn the tomatoes red. I have a link in the description where you can read more. This renders the tomatoes nearly flavorless relative to garden tomatoes. As an alternative, I recommend tip number 2. Use cherry tomatoes. Since cherry tomatoes can be shipped in bulk without crushing, they are ripe and delicious all year round. You can either cut these individually, or, if you want to save time, place them in a food processor. Lightly pulse a few times until the tomatoes have been roughly chopped. I could eat this stuff by the spoonful, but set it aside while we prepare our cheese. Now, I expect to get some pushback on this one, but tip number 3. Shred your own cheese. Not only does the cheese melt quicker when you shred it yourself, but you also get to choose exactly what type of cheese you want to put on your taco. I'm using Cheddar Jack here, but if my store had it in stock, I would have done pepper jack, which is absolutely amazing on tacos and normally doesn't come pre-shredded. Next, the lettuce. To chop lettuce for tacos, first cut out the woody core from the bottom, cutting around it at an angle to minimize waste. Then, chop it in half, placing 1/2 aside. This method makes so much chopped lettuce that we only need half. From here, placing the cut side down, cut into 1/2-inch strips. Then, make a large chop or two across the pile we have just made. Gather the lettuce together and place it aside. At this point, you can also prepare other toppings. Some people like to add diced onions or green pepper, though that is not my personal preference. Finally, we can prepare the meat. Today, I'm going to use 3 different types. Regular 80/20 ground beef, some cheap steak, and some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The ground beef is ready to go as is, but for the steak and chicken, chop them into small 1/2-inch cubes or as close as you can get. Here I'm cutting up the steak, and I did the same for the chicken as well. Once all of that is ready, we can cook the meat. I will start with the ground beef. Place a large skillet over medium-high, with about a tablespoon of olive oil. Once that is hot and shimmering, dump in your ground beef and begin breaking it up as it browns. Tip number 4. Add seasonings when the fat has been rendered out. After a few minutes, juices and fat will begin to collect in the bottom of the pan. At this point, add your taco seasoning. I'm sure it's possible to over-season this, but I've not managed to do so thus far. Taco meat needs to be really strongly seasoned in order to stand out in the taco, and for that purpose, I like to add what feels like too much seasoning to the meat. I think I added a bit more than 2 tablespoons here. It is also important that we don't skim off any fat. Whenever we remove fat, we are also removing flavor. I would only remove some fat if you are using extremely fatty meat, like 70-30 ground beef. Otherwise, we will reduce the fat over the next few minutes by boiling off any water in the liquid. Just lower the heat to medium-low and pull it when the steam begins to subside, and you can hear the bubbling in the pan turn to sizzling. I'm going to take the taco meat and put it in a separate container for now, while I cook my steak. Now this meat is a little less fatty, so I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil this time, and turn the heat up to medium-high. Once that is ready, I will dump in my steak. Once in, it's the same procedure as before. Cook until some moisture begins to release from the meat, add the taco seasoning, and reduce the heat, steaming off the excess liquid and finishing cooking the meat over the next minute or so. Same thing with the chicken. I set my steak aside and added a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil to the pan, turning up the heat to medium-high. I added the chicken, stirring for a few minutes until the moisture began to pool under the pieces. Then I added my seasoning, reduced the heat, and evaporated some of that moisture as the chicken finished cooking. Once done, I set the chicken aside, rinsed and cleaned my pan, and prepared for the final step. Tip number 5. Toast your taco shells. Disclaimer: I don't recommend this if you are feeding a crowd. I recommend doing this for a max of 4 people. Otherwise, just toss them in the microwave according to the package instructions. But if you do have the opportunity to do this, this is absolutely worth a try. I just have my burner on medium heat and the pan is clean. Just toss on the tortilla until you start to notice some substantial bubbling. Then flip. You should have some brown spots over the surface of the tortilla. The second side should only take about 30 seconds. Once that is also browned, lay it in a clean kitchen towel. Fold it over to let it steam. And just repeat over the next few minutes with however many taco shells you need, stacking them in the towel as you go. Be careful with the burner heat. If the shells start to burn, lower the heat. If they are taking more than a minute on the first side, increase the heat. Once those are done, you are ready to serve. And here you go. Weeknight tacos 3 ways. Just toss on a bit of your favorite hot sauce, your toppings, some sour cream if you're into that, and enjoy. Now, I got a little overzealous after taking the thumbnail pictures and forgot to shoot me taking the first bite. But I can assure you that out of the 3, the chicken taco was easily my favorite. But what is better than 3 choices? How about all 3 meats on one taco? Now, that was an amazing taco. Thanks for watching. I don't know whether I prefer these tip showcase videos or the more straightforward recipe videos. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Next week, I hope to show you some weeknight Asian-inspired beef and broccoli soup. Thank you.